Rachid Mohamed Rachid is one of the most respected Arab entrepreneurs who continues to make his mark in the global business community. Born in Alexandria to a prominent Egyptian family in the shipping and consumer goods industries, Rachid earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Alexandria and an advanced management diploma from the Harvard Business School. In 1978, Rachid joined the family business and transformed it into one of the biggest fast-moving consumer goods companies in the region. This was done through a joint venture with the Coca-Cola Company in Egypt and by establishing several leading food manufacturing and distribution businesses such as Dream Foods and Fine Foods. In 1991, Rachid formed a joint venture with the global consumer goods giant Unilever, joining its board and becoming president of Unilever North Africa, Middle East, and Turkey. In that capacity, Rachid led several of Unilever's largest international companies in various countries and represented Unilever in the Arabian Mashreq region. With a reputation as one of Egypt's most successful business leaders, Rachid was appointed Egypt's Minister of Trade and Industry in 2004. He served in this role until 2011 and played a significant role in the liberalization of Egypt's economy. Rachid implemented major reforms that strengthened the country's core industrial sectors, increasing imports and attracting significant foreign investment. During his tenure, Egypt experienced unprecedented high rates of economic growth and employment, with the country's annual industrial growth surpassing 20% and yearly exports tripling in value. After his tenure as minister, Rachid became the CEO of the Mayhoola Fund, focusing on global investments in the luxury sector. Through Mayhoola, Rachid acquired the luxury fashion houses of Valentino in 2012 and Balmain in 2016, and continues to serve as chairman for both these companies. Under Rachid's leadership, Valentino quadrupled in revenue from 2012 to 2023, and Balmain tripled its revenue from 2016 to 2023. Rachid is also the founder of AlSara Investment Group, which invests in companies such as the Econi Group for eyewear and Italian fashion brand Chrisjoy. In 2022, AlSara acquired Ecatera, the world's leading tea business, with over 30 brands, including Lipton. Rachid is also the founder of Bidayat, an international investment group which supports creative entrepreneurship in the Mediterranean region. Most recently, Bidayat invested in Ukhtain in 2021 and Azza Fahmi in 2023, two Egyptian brands founded by female entrepreneurs. In 2022, the business of fashion included Rachid in the BOF 500 class of 2022, the definitive list of the most important figures in fashion. In 2023, under Rachid's leadership, Mayhoola sold 30% of Valentino to the fashion giant Kering Group for 1.87 billion euros, marking a new strategic relationship between Mayhoola and Kering. As a pioneer and role model, Rachid Mohamed Rachid stands out as one of the most prominent international leaders from the Middle East and continues to make an impact around the world. Mr. Rachid, it's an honor to have you with us.
It's my pleasure, yeah.
You've had a fascinating life with so many different reincarnations, and I'm sure you've had a lot of challenges along the way. Let's start by going back to the early years and find out what your hopes and dreams were for your life and how that affected the choices you made along the way.
I started my life in my city, Alexandria, which I loved a lot, and I studied in Alexandria, and then I went to university. I studied mechanical engineering. I was not fond to be an engineer. I had in my mind ambition to be in business, but my father gave me the advice that if you have an engineer, you probably have a better way of thinking and you have a better way of understanding investment and production, and now I believe he was right. By the time I finished my studies, I had a very big desire to be involved in creation of things. It is something I was very much obsessed about from my day one in business, that I want to be in a business where I could really create value. I could really create a brand, a product. I was not fond of doing something that is only pushing numbers. I didn't care much about the size. I didn't care much about the money in it, but it was more about my ability to say that there is something that did not exist and now it exists because of me. And for that purpose, I went into the business of brands. I started with beverages and food. I had an operation of soft drinks at the time, which was in favor. When I finished my studies, I went for training as a refrigeration mechanical engineer in Denmark, in a very isolated place. I worked in a refrigeration company, but I didn't need much because the temperature was -20. But I had a good exposure and a good experience at the time. Then when I went back to Alexandria, I started in my family business. My father was in the business of shipping, and he had a very successful career himself. But I started a completely different line with his support and his guidance, which was more in the area of beverage, foods, and then consumer products. I had the ambition, but the ambition was not any business. The ambition was the creation of something. I still believe from that time when I built the first factory, and during my career in Egypt, I built 17 factories. Wow. Factories, bringing equipment, having, of course, the design, having the process in place, building the buildings, getting machines, and then going through the whole installation period until the moment that you have a product coming. That was the most exciting thing.
So do you consider yourself a creative at heart?
No, I consider myself a person who likes contribution in a positive way. I like to say that something have been positively created and built because of my contribution. I love beautiful things. I love products which look nice. I like, brands which look attractive. And all my life I've been pursuing that in business.
The businesses in Egypt became extremely successful. You had also the merger with Unilever, and you were at the peak of your business career when the opportunity came to join the Egyptian government. As a successful businessman, how difficult was that a decision to make?
If I look back at my life, I see my life going into phases of things, and I like that. It added a lot to my development and my capabilities. And I would encourage young people to be open to that. If you have the chance every few years to do something different, whether it's different in your own business, but it's a different function or it's a different activity, or you change job, or you change geography, or you change responsibility, that is very helpful. If we do the same thing for a very long time, we got used to it, we got bored of it, we feel that there is diminishing return and we reach a plateau. But if there is an element of change, then you take everything out of the previous experience and then you start adding on it. And that could create something unique in terms of the combination of things. I was in Alexandria, I had my own business as a family business. That business developed in a very significant way. Then we created a very successful joint venture with Unilever in Egypt. And then that Unilever business expanded across the borders to other countries in the Middle East, many countries in the East Mediterranean and in south of Egypt and all the way to Turkey. But then something very unusual happened is that Unilever, as a multinational, they came to me and they proposed that I join the company as an executive director, which meant that I leave my family business and I go and live in London as an executive in a different company. And I said at the time to the chairman, I've never been working for anybody in my life. But he convinced me because there was a very high level of excitement to be in charge of a very significant operation globally. And at the time, Unilever was expanding in food, and I was going to be involved in an operation of about 60 billion in different countries. Wow. And that gave an amazing opportunity. I went through that experience for a period of 4 years. And then the call came to join the government in Egypt. That was totally unexpected. I had no expectation, I had no preparation, I had no anticipation for it. I was called by Prime Minister, and of course, typical to government job, they want you to be there in 24 hours, which meant that you have to drop everything. I said at the time to the Prime Minister, how do you want me to do that? I'm sitting on a board of, at the time, of 26 companies, and I have responsibilities. I told them that it's like leaving your house and being hit by a bus, because you're not just coming back, right? But that was government. I mean, when governments are formed, they don't give you 1 month's notice, 2 months' notice. They gave me actually a request to be there in 24 hours. I hesitated in the beginning. It took a bit of time to convince myself, to talk to my family, to be comfortable with the position, because there was something else. I was going to be minister in the government of Egypt, and Egypt was not used to have private sector people in the government. In reality, I was the first private sector minister since 1952. And then later on, other people joined. With the approval of my family, I said, fine, I'm going to do it. I decided, again, in the same spirit that I am open to do a different phase in my life. I went back and I played the role of a government minister. It was successful. I do not regret doing it because I was always saying to myself and I was always saying to my daughters and family that if I feel that I can make a difference in the life of one person, it's worth it. During the period I've spent in the government, there have been so many development and so many positive things that happened that made it very clear to me that there was a positive impact on the sectors of industry and trade and export and development and creativity, but it was also touching the minds and the hearts of young people. This is something that is very close to my heart, not only in my position as a government, but also in my position all across my life in companies, because in my businesses in Egypt, when I left the business to join the government, there were 7,000 people working. And out of the 7,000 people working, I assume 95% of them were very young. It was really beautiful, and I have the satisfaction until today when I meet some people to say we were working together, and that period have had an impact on their life and on their success in the future. Yeah. Government period was, of course, very special. It had its own nature of how to do things. Being in politics is not like being in business. They're very, very different. There are certain characteristics which are useful in both of them. When I joined the government, some of my colleagues came to me because I was a businessman. I was attending the meeting, and my interaction in the meeting was very similar to what I had in the business. And they said, "What are you trying to do in the meeting? Why you are very pushy to get to a result?" And I said, "Because this is what I trained to do. I come into the meeting and I want to achieve a result." They said, no. You have to understand this is politics. And in politics, it's not about the results, it's about the activities. We do activities, we don't care about the results. Just cool down and slow down a little bit. And I didn't, because I didn't want to change myself, because I remember when I made the shift from my family business to corporate business, when I went to Unilever, I went into a new environment, and it was very, very different. Before I was my own boss, I was running my own business. I had my own style, I had my own way of doing things. And I remember after I arrived to London 2-3 weeks later, the chairman of the company, who was a very good friend of mine, invited me to lunch, and he said, "How are you coping with being in a corporate like Unilever, which is like a country?" I mean, Unilever was in 200 countries and had like 600,000 people working. And I said, "Fine, I'm trying to adapt." He said, no. Take my advice. Don't try to adapt. You are here because of who you are.
Interesting.
You have been chosen here because of what you do and how you do it. So if you come here and try to change yourself to do things the way we do it, it doesn't make any sense. And that was a very valuable advice, because I understood then the value of really maintaining your integrity and maintaining your way of doing things. So I remember that very well when I went to the government, that I am there because of who I am.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be doing things the way that other people do it. And I'm not saying other people are doing wrong or right. That's not the point. But my strengths, my ability of achieving things, my ability to make a difference is based on me being myself. I have to make sure that I don't lose my integrity, I don't lose my character when I'm in a different job. That was probably very new in the government, because people felt a little bit uncomfortable about that.
Yeah.
Because I felt I don't care to stay, because I'm just doing it and I'm doing it my way.
You became one of Egypt's most successful and respected ministers, and a lot of the trade agreements and the work you did during that time impacted Egypt so positively. What were your proudest moments?
When I joined the government, I have to admit that I knew very little, and it was a very pressing time to try to catch up and understand not just the way to perform and the way to do the job, but also how to set the priorities and how to set the agenda for working. I was lucky to have people around me who were very competent and very cooperative, which is very unique in the government, because not only in Egypt, I've seen it in many governments and many places around the world. I was a minister of foreign trade, so I had the big advantage of traveling and being exposed to many, many countries during my time in the government. And it was very normal in all the governments that people are fighting among themselves. That's the nature of politics. Huh? You go to the US, you go to Japan, you go to Brazil, you go to Africa, it's all the same, because everybody wants to be special, everyone wants to be in a position to get credit, because that's how they survive, whether they want to have the blessing and the appreciation of their constituents, which is the public, or whether they want to have popularity, or whether they want to have the acceptance of their bosses. That is how they survive every day. I was blessed when I was in Egypt to have people around me who were cooperative, but at the same time they were very competent to help me do my job. and to give me the ability to set my agenda. And I set an agenda which was very impactful in development of the economy, in development of the trade, of the industry. I started with 2 ministries and then I expanded into more. I started with the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Industry, and then I took the Internal Trade. And then before even I left, I took the Ministry of Investment. And it was very important for me to have a very clear direction. I'm not saying that I am the one who set the direction, because it was part of the policies set in the government. But I knew very well that one of the most important things for us is to be positively integrating in the international economy. No government, no country will succeed today if it's in isolation. The reality of the world today depends on how much you are integrated globally and how much you are open to competition. For that purpose, it was very important for me to develop a set of trade agreements between Egypt and the rest of the world. We have succeeded in creating an amazing network of trade agreements which exist until today and benefit the country until today. A trade agreement between Egypt and Europe, a trade agreement between Egypt and the Arab countries, trade agreement with the African countries, trade agreements with the United States through the QIZ, trade agreements with Latin American, Mercosur, which is Brazil and Argentina and other countries in Latin America, trade agreement with Switzerland, trade agreement with Turkey. And all these trade agreements were actually giving us preferential treatment in these markets, but also giving access to these countries into our country. And of course, some people said this is not good for us because it will increase competition. But that was exactly the point. I wanted to increase competition because we can only be better if we start increasing competition. At the same time, I have to train people to become better and to be up to the competition. But at the same level that we were pushing the development of the industry and our traders, we were also opening up the markets outside and inside. One of the most influential things that also have been happening is how we can really train people to be more prepared for production and for the productivity equation that we wanted. There is a big issue in a country like Egypt, which is not only Egypt but also other countries, is that the education system is not aligned with the requirements of the market. I was probably the first Minister of Trade and Industry that requested the Minister of Higher Education that I want to meet the heads of all the universities of Egypt. And I debated with them in a very open way how we can have the alignment between the education and the real request of the market. And I told them very openly, we have a serious problem. You keep producing graduates that do not fit our market. They come out, they're unemployed. In the meantime, our production units, our institutions, our banks, our accounting firms, our every activity that we have cannot find the right skills that we want. We need to start seriously working hand in hand on how we can find that. And we put in motion some of this mechanism. The focus on the human development of Egypt was very high in my agenda. One of the most important things in development of every country, because at the end of the day, it's people who make the difference.
Did you find resistance to the changes you were making and the policies you were making? Or was the government at the time supportive?
We had a tremendous resistance. I always knew from day one when I started facing public, and which was new to me. I was not a person who was going to public meetings or making speeches in any country. Of course, I had my own business activity, but when I started facing public, I started facing people, I started facing media and so on. I discovered that the real battle that I have, and that does not apply only to Egypt, by the way. It's how you change minds. And we had a non-stop fight from first day until my last day in the office with the resistance of the minds that want to make sure that nothing changes. Some people don't want to accept what is the reality of the world of today. Of course, we can have different views. I'm not saying I'm always right. I might be wrong in certain things. But at the end of the day, the ability of change will influence your ability to succeed. How can you change? How can you be, again, open-minded to the ideas and open-minded to the ideas that come from everywhere? We have a lack of diversity in Egypt. Not Egypt, but many countries. Look even today at the United States, look at the UK. Everybody wants to be closed. Everybody wants to have less diversity. Nobody wants to have immigrants. Nobody wants to have foreign people coming in. And that is dangerous because it makes people just prisoner of their own ideas and minds, and they're not open to what is happening around them. and they keep convincing themselves of the same things, and they think that whatever they have done yesterday didn't work, they will do it today and it will work. And I used to say always during the time, we keep doing things and we know that they're not working, but we will do them again and we hope this time, inshallah, that they will work. It doesn't work this way. So people have to be open-minded. They have to be accepting critical minds and critical ideas and critical views, and at the same time keep changing things all the time. We were faced with this ideas that you are against socialism, you are against what we believe in Egypt, you are against poor people because you come from a rich background, then you don't understand what poor people think. And I used to tell them, it's not about being rich or poor, but if you assume that a rich person cannot understand needy people, then we have to assume that if we want to bring a minister of health, we have to bring a sick person. We cannot bring a healthy person because he will not be able to understand what sick people feel. It doesn't work like that.
And the policies you did help.
Yeah, exactly. You have to forget the person, forget the source of ideas. Let's judge things on their own merit. And again, it's not only Egypt. I've seen it everywhere. They personalize things because they want to kill your ideas. They attack you on a personal level. And they say, okay, because you come from that source, or you come from that background, or you come from that city, you are not a person that we should listen to. Back again, it was always a battle to change minds. All the time, and being very open about not being comfortable about the changes that we are making, despite the reality that, things were getting better. But that still, people were saying, we are not feeling anything, why you are not caring about this, why you are not caring about that. But it was a battle of minds. And I can tell you, after my experience across many, many countries, it's everywhere. It is always that challenge.
Probably during that time, it was also the first time in your career where you had to deal with so much resistance and challenge. And I'm sure that also affected your growth as a person in terms of how you overcame this and still managed to succeed in that position.
Well, of course, part of growing is being able really to deal with challenges, to deal with resistance. And this was not an easy job, moving from business into politics. But the transformation, I think, happened in a way that was still effective, was still making a difference, was still creating that equation that was exciting because I could see that there is a value created and there is something that have been produced. I mean, the numbers of new factories that have been built in the country, the extra export that have been generated, the extra skills that have been developed among young people, the expansion of creative industry that we have seen. I mean, there have been so many initiatives. And of course, there have been some failures, but at least success was more than failures.
Yes.
And seeing that success give you the fuel and give you the ability to overcome that resistance, yeah.
Of course, 2011 was a very big challenge for Egypt, the whole country, a life-altering experience. And of course, for you personally, it was an extremely life-altering experience. How were you able to deal with all this change and overnight turbulence in your life? And what inner resolve did it take to get through that period of time?
It was not easy. It was a very, very difficult time for my family, for myself, to be forced to be in a very unstable situation. For me, the most painful part of it was, it is valid to every human being. It's the level of injustice that you have been subjected to. There was a lot of injustice. There was a lot of misrepresentation. There was a lot of things which have been very negative thrown on you, which is unfair, unjust. We had definitely to change our lives, not by choice, but being forced to. My family was the most important thing for me, and it proved to be extremely important that the stability of my family and myself was really the reason that we could really overcome something like that. It was not easy. It was not something that I want to live again. I don't want to have people I love to be subjected to that again. But it made us all stronger. It made us all believe that if you are right, if you are honest, if you know what you are doing, God will be with you and destiny will be with you and things will always be right at the end of the day. Just stay the course. Just make sure that you stay with your principle, you stay with your integrity, you stay with your beliefs, and don't lose it. That was very valuable, not only for me, but also for my daughters, because I'm sure through that experience I became much stronger. In difficult times, everybody's tested, and I think we had our share of that. And I look back at this period and I see really why we should all worry about putting in our children enough principles and values, because one day in the future that will be tested. People don't understand and don't even believe today that there is too much merit in this. You could see a lot of families saying, my children, they just have to be street smart. If they're street smart, they know how to deal with the street smartness and fahlawa and things like that. That's probably for them more important. But no, it's not true. I've seen it with my own eyes. When you have principles, when you have beliefs, that's when you can stand the tough times in life. And believe me, everybody will have his own share of tough times. And when the tough times will hit you, you will be in bad need of your principles and values and beliefs. These are moments in your life, if you can really overcome and stand tall in it, you become stronger. Yeah. When problems also face you in life, you see black and white, what is important, what is not important. It's a little bit like death. When people are faced with death of somebody close to them, for certain moments you start thinking in a different way, but then we forget. But also in my situation, when I was through a challenge, it made it very clear there are very few things in life that are important. And it's all about your family, your integrity, your beliefs, your peace with yourself. The rest is not important. People struggle about money, people struggle about positions, people struggle about a lot of things. A moment comes and then you can see things in a much clearer way. Yeah.
How long did it take for you and your family to adjust? And how long did it take for you to start picking up the pieces and re-establishing yourself and your life?
One of the most important capabilities of a human being is adaptation. If you are rigid, if you cannot adapt, if you continue to insist on having the same things and the same environment and the same treatment, you are not adapting to anything and you are not an adaptable person. Life changes, and if you are able to adapt and if you are able to accommodate, the environment around you to your own capabilities, you become much, much stronger. Yes, we went through an adaptation phase. We have been able really to overcome a lot of the difficulties that we have faced at the time, yeah. Because we went to a new country, we went to a new community, we went to a new culture, environment. We had to deal with a lot of bad feelings because there was so much injustice, and you have to be a person that can adapt, and we did adapt.
This phase, though, led to the birth of a completely new phase in your life where you have emerged even more high profile and even more international figure as the chairman of Mayhoola for Investments, which has Valentino and Balmain. Now you are the chairman of as well. And it launched you into a completely different world. It's amazing to see you adapt from the consumer goods business into government and now into the heart and pulse of the luxury fashion world. Was it something you chose, or was it something presented to you that you thought it was an opportunity?
I went through a difficult phase. I was unjustly and unfairly deprived of all my wealth, of all my assets. Later on, everything came to an order because everybody knew that this was all a lot of nonsense and a lot of false accusation based on conspiracies. But for a period of time, there was a situation where I had to start almost all over again. Having the chance in my age, in my situation, in my time, to start all over again was real fun. To be in a different environment, to be in a different even country, where I had to throw away my phone. And I decided, I'm starting a new phase in my life, and I'm starting a new phase where even all what my family and myself have created and people wrongly trying to take out of me, because this was really something my family and myself worked very hard in a very decent and fair way. Before joining the government, we had zero interference with the government in any business. I mean, it was one of the principles of my father and one of the advice of my father when I was in business to tell me, son, go into businesses where you don't have to deal with the government. That was the reason why we were in consumer products. If I'm selling Lipton tea, or if I'm selling fine foods soup, or if I'm selling a Coca-Cola, I don't need the government. It's between me and the consumer. We built one of the most decent businesses and value creation in that period of time in the country. In a wrong way, and people try to deprive us from all this, which happened for a period of time. And then, as I said, justice came back and every institution in the country came back and they said, you are right, nothing. Because I was one of the few people that they have gone through 100% scrutiny, trying to find anything wrong, and they couldn't. And they came back and they said, okay, we know that everything is right, and not only the courts, but every institution in the country said you are right, and that came later. But during that period, I had nothing. I had no access to anything. But it was fun. because I felt that challenge that I have to start all over again. And that's fine, because if you have the capabilities in your mind and you have the trust of the people and the business community, which I was blessed to have it, everybody who knew me in business, I have a lot of trust and we had a very high respect to work together. It was really an exciting time, because if you go back again to what excited me in life, it wasn't the money. And I remember my wife always keep telling me during that time, don't worry about this. You know, money in the banks doesn't mean anything. It's all what you can do and how you can do it. You should not worry about all these problems. And I started to think in a very open way of how I could come back into business. I was also very keen to go back into business. During the period of time I was in the government, I had zero involvement in business. And I am a man who is very operational, so I want to wake up in the morning and get involved in the business. So for a number of years I was out of it, and I decided to go back, and I had to make a choice which business I should go in. And I decided something very unusual, very challenging, to go into the international luxury business. I started by investing in Valentino with the support, of course, of investors. And I started building the business of luxury in a very, very aggressive way, because it has to be international. I mean, this is not a kind of business that you do it at small level. You have to do it at a very international level. And you have a very fierce competition across the world, and it has very, very high visibility. But that was a choice. I wanted to go back in luxury. I decided mentally that this is something I want to do. I want to go back into consumer, but I didn't have a chance until later when I acquired Lipton from Unilever, and now I am also one of the main investors in Lipton globally in the world. But that was nostalgic, because I was very full of...
we were wondering about that.
It was more nostalgic because this is something I built in the past, so I wanted to go back, and I had the chance to buy Lipton globally and build that business with my partners. But my time was more in businesses that has a creative element. And I started with Valentino, but it expanded into many other things later.
But what made the decision to go into the luxury fashion world in particular? Was it maybe your daughters?
Not really. It was a very rational business decision. I come from a background where I understand consumer products. I had a lot of network and people that I knew, especially in Italy, who were working in the luxury business. I understood when I was in the government the power of creative business, when I was traveling around and seeing around the world what's happening in a place like China. And I could see the explosion of how, you know, when a country like China is developing and becoming richer and the middle class is starting to develop, what appetite they have for luxury products. It was very clear to me that this is a sector and the market that will continue to grow for a very, very long time. And it has an amazing appeal and attraction. I was always attracted to something called a global brand. Even some of these global brands you see, they are not really consistent. Meaning that, you know, if you have a Lipton tea, you have a different formula in Arabia than the one that you have in America, than the one you have in India. You have a different packaging. You have a different advertisement. One of the most unique businesses where you have a real global brands is luxury. Because if you have a Valentino bag today, it's the same bag in Brazil or it's the same bag in Japan, it's the same bag. It doesn't change in specification. The advertisement is the same. The communication is the same. And it's not only that. A small shop in Milano selling very, very, you know, limited assortment of products in luxury, they could go global in a matter of 1 or 2 years. So the luxury had this power of talking and speaking in a global language. And that was very attractive for me. I knew that this is going to be big. I knew that this is going to be very important in the future.
Since you've taken over Valentino and Balmain, the brands have exploded, and under your leadership, the success has been tremendous. That also shows it's more about the business skills than the experience in a certain industry, correct?
Business is business, and business skills they have a lot of commonality across sectors. You need to understand the sector. You need to understand what fashion stands for. You need to understand what luxury stands for. And of course, there is the glamorous side, the celebrities and the models and the shows and the parties and all this. But that's only the facing of it, okay? You have the kitchen behind, which is a real business and real manufacturing. You have factories producing products. You have salespeople doing sales. You have designers who are working on design. You have accountants. The business side is one part of it, but on the other side, there is a sectorial knowledge about it, and you have to have a feel of it. I'll give you an example. I learned all my life when I was in marketing. Companies like Unilever, who are cutting-edge marketing companies, they teach you marketing is identifying a consumer needs and fulfilling it. Go and find what people need and just give it to them. So we do all this research. What do they need so we can give them the perfect, toothpaste, because they want their teeth to be whiter, they want to have a better gum, they want all this. I sit in this first meeting with Valentino, and then everything was upside down. Because they said, we tell them what to do. We don't ask them what they want, because we will tell them that they need a coat or they need a bag, this style and this color. The more unexpected it is, the more attractive it will be for them. That's luxury, that's fashion. Who needs to have a bag that will have cashmere inside or silk? In my first days in Valentino, my commercial director came to me and he said, I love Cucinelli because they have this amazing shoes. I said, fine, but what is so special about the shoes? He said, the lace, it's cashmere. I said, okay, what is the benefit of having cashmere lace? He said, you cannot imagine the feeling in the morning when you are tying your lace with cashmere, how it feels, There is no research on earth that will tell you that consumer want the lace to be cashmere. You made it.
Until you have it.
You made it, you give it to them, now they love it, right? And they want it.
Yeah.
And you need to respect that. And you need to understand that luxury and fashion is based on creativity. In our companies, we produce between 12 to 16 collections every year. And every collection is like a new movie. You have the chance whether it will work, it will not work, people will accept it, will not accept it, but it's all creativity. If you don't have the creativity, you don't have the brands. Yeah. In reality, sometimes, especially in women, even if functionally it's bad, it doesn't matter. If it looks, attractive and good, it's fine. In some seasons, you have the trend of selling shoes with heels of 15 centimeters. I'm sure it's not comfortable to walk on the shoes, but it feels good, right? And there is a lot of examples. But at the end, you need to understand the industry.
Yes. And how many times were you completely surprised by something, by a trend that you thought wouldn't work and turned out to be a big hit?
I learned my lesson very quickly in the beginning, because every time I was shown any products before hitting the market, at the stage of inception and birth of the product, I was wrong. So I used to say, this is beautiful, amazing, why don't you go this direction? And this doesn't sell anything, it's flops. And I remember Valentino, they made this stud shoes, right? Which we pushed them to do, because when we acquired Valentino, Valentino was perceived to be for relatively older women. Red evening dresses, very expensive. Young people didn't approach the stores because it was very expensive, right? And there was not much products for young people. I sat with them, we set the strategy, let's focus on young consumer. And for that you need different approach, but also you need to encourage accessories, shoes and bags. And we presented something called studs and camouflage. And to be honest, Mr. Valentino, who created the brand, was an amazing creation force. It was part of the archive that he made 30 years ago. There was studs there and there was camouflage, but it needed a modern interpretation of it. But when we introduced the studs and we created this iconic stud shoes, Valentino, which I assume many women will know what I'm talking about, okay? When we created this, they came to me and they said, okay, this is how we are going to present it in terms of communication. And there was the shoes held by a hand with all tattoos on it. And that was going to be the advertisement that was going to go in all the publication and all the communication. The Valentino shoes with a hand with very heavy tattoos. And I said, no way, this is crazy, no way, no way. I don't even think that this is aligned with the brand positioning. Valentino is supposed to be about elegance, beauty, magic. It cannot be aligned with tattoos. How can you put that, And this is a hand of a man, not a hand of a woman. And they said, listen, we showed it to people, it's fine. I said, no, I don't think it works. But I said, listen, I'm not going to interfere. Just go ahead. It was the most successful communication that happened at the time. It was totally impactful, because it was the contrast between super femininity in the stud shoes and masculinity in a very, very brute way. So I learned my lesson. If you like anything in the brands, I will not take credit for it. No, the credit goes to my creative people and my product people. I cannot predict what women want next season. Yeah, I cannot do that.
Although you're surrounded by women too.
I know, but that's also why I know I cannot predict what they want. In my life, I cannot predict what my women want next week, so I cannot say that I can know what women will want next season. Yeah.
So you focus more on the business side and you let the creatives do their work.
But that's part of it, that you give the proper environment to your creative people and you support them. My role, not only in this business, but every business that I have, and I have, alhamdulillah, a very big number of businesses today, to set the vision, to set the direction, to select the right people who can do the job, and to motivate them and keep them accountable. I'm the one with the team that is setting the direction. That's very important. We have to know where we are going. We have to know what objective and what targets we are going after. Yeah. And then you must have the right people. If you don't have the right people, forget it. No business, no government will work. Right people, the right human capacity is the number one element of success in everything. That's the job of the leader, to make sure you have the right people in place and motivate them and keep them accountable. But you cannot motivate them and keep them accountable if you don't have a sense of direction. Because if you don't have sense of direction, anything looks fine. That's why you have this order. You must have the vision, then you have the people, then keep them accountable.
You still have your hands full with Valentino and Balmain. You also established AlSara Group for Investments, which is managing a whole new set of younger brands. And where did that idea come about?
AlSara was established because when all my assets were reintroduced to me again after the time that I left Egypt and all the evolution that happened, I wanted to redirect myself in a way that I can set something that will be relevant for the future. And that is a vehicle that I've put in place to be able really to continue to invest in new businesses. But I believe in focus. I never believed in doing too many things. So I'm not the kind of person who will do fashion, luxury, and then I will do real estate, and then I will do tourism, and then I will do banking. For me, as I said, it is definitely the creative area that is my area of focus, which means fashion, luxury, but also consumer products, and this is where AlSara came. AlSara invested in Lipton operation, but AlSara went also all the way to say, okay, we are going to support creative ideas and creative projects in multiple countries, but mainly the geography in my mind have always been a Mediterranean. I come from Alexandria. I love the Mediterranean. I think that's the best place in the world, and I think there is a lot of value in that. I mean, in terms of creativity, in terms of style of life, there is a lot really to build on. And for that purpose, we started investing in a number of small companies. We did invest in companies in Italy. We established some companies. We acquired some companies. We established companies in Switzerland and Lugano. We invested in 2 companies in Egypt, Okhtain and Azza Fahmi. Azza Fahmi, of course, is an icon in the Middle East and icon in Egypt, and have been super successful over the years. And I think the challenge now is to be with them in the journey of what they are trying to do to become a global company. On the other hand, we have Okhtain, which is a very, very young company led by very entrepreneurial and very creative 2 young ladies. And the challenge that they have is how to go global, and we are trying to help them in succeeding there. We are looking at more companies in the region, in the Gulf, even in Lebanon with all the problems that they have, in Morocco. But originally we are based in Milan, and all our capabilities are based in Italy, where we think there is a very strong ecosystem for creativity, not only in fashion, but also in furniture. I mean, one of the companies we nurture, which is led by my daughter, is in furniture from. Another company is in eyewear. But all young people, they have this capability of doing things. But I encourage them to take risks. And I know from my experience that you have to take risks. And you have to accept to fail. If you are not going to fail, you are not going to learn much. And if you are afraid to fail, you are going to do nothing. And if you are afraid not to succeed, you will never succeed. I want to create that safe environment for myself, for my children, and also for other people, that they can operate while they feel that they can definitely try to give the maximum they can give in terms of creativity and operation, but they can feel safe, meaning even if they fail, they can feel they can stand up again and go. People learn much, much more by their failure, only if they have the willingness to stand up and continue. You have to have the resilience, you have to have this burning feeling that you want to succeed.
And now that you're managing all these different businesses, how do you divide your time? Isn't it hard to focus on all these multiple businesses at the same time?
It's a matter of organization. It's a matter of having the right people. I'm not operational, as I said. I defined to you the role that I made, which is setting the vision, getting the right people, and creating the right environment for them. And if I feel I came to a situation where I extended myself, I have to refocus again. But I depend a lot on having the right people to do the right jobs. Now, with time and with experience, of course, you have to adapt, and I'm adapting. I'm adapting to a new life, and every 6 months, every year, I know that I have to do things in a different way, which means also that I manage my time in a different way. And I feel that I owe it to myself now that I can only work with people that I like, and I only do things that I like. And that's okay, that's a little bit of luxury, but I am in the luxury business, so I can afford that. Yeah.
This summer, there was the announcement of your deal with the luxury powerhouse group Kering, where they acquired 30% of Valentino. Is that also a shift in your perspective?
No, it was a very strong sign of success on what we are doing. I mean, Valentino acquired 10 years ago almost for a value of 700 million. The deal was done at a valuation of 6 billion, and it can take the company even to much higher value in the future, which is almost 10 times. But more important is that when Valentino was acquired, I remember, nobody wanted to buy a Valentino. It wasn't like, people
so
were
crazy.
fighting, right? When this deal happened, everybody wanted Valentino. And they were paying numbers which have never been seen before in the industry because of the position that the brand have achieved. Credit to the team, credit to the creative team, credit to the CEO and the management team that we have. But it was a vision, and a vision that have been achieved. And it gave us a lot of good reputation in the industry, that we are not people who are just amateur. We have done something that stand equal to the best professional in the industry, or even better. We are building value again. I go back to the same equation. When you ask me what you wanted to do in life, I wanted to build value. And that's my satisfaction, that I'm building value. Creating value, creating these amazing products, creating these amazing brands is something I'm very proud of. Yeah.
So what's next for Mr. Rachid with all this success and all these different brands under your belt?
It's more of the same. And believe me, I don't care about the size. Building a brand of €1 million, it's equivalent to building a brand of 2 billion or 3 billion, which I've done. Size, it doesn't matter. How much money is coming out of it doesn't matter. Going through the process of building it and something coming out of it, it makes me very, very satisfied. In the process of doing this, you have built a lot of souls, and you have built a lot of people and capabilities. I'm very grateful that I see a lot of people in different places, not only in Egypt, but also in different countries around the world, that they come to me and they said, we were with you in one of your journeys, and we learned something out of it. The most amazing thing, a Lebanese lady, who was achieved something very, very exceptional. And she just sent me this video that she was on a television show. And she said, my interaction with her, I think 30 years ago, changed her life and made her what she is today. And I could not believe that. But I was there with her, and we were in a journey because I was building a company in Lebanon. I mentored her a little bit. And then she comes now 30 years later and she said, you changed my life. This is amazing. And fortunately, I have a lot of instances like this from different people around the world, and that's the biggest satisfaction. Nothing else is worth as much as this. Yeah.
We're now at the Enigma questionnaire, where I'm going to ask you several questions where you just answer quickly whatever comes to mind. Which 5 words best describe you?
I'm creative. I love people. I love to be among people. And I'm romantic, yeah.
Okay, that's an unexpected one. And what would you like to change about yourself?
No, nothing. One of the most important things for any human being is to be able to assess himself, to know your strengths and to your weaknesses. And sometimes you have to accept your weaknesses. Sometimes you have to know that you have a weakness and you have to deal with it. And I know that I have certain weaknesses that I have to deal with. Because it's like a football player. If you know that your left leg is not your good leg to shoot with, don't use it, okay? If you don't know that, you will keep using your left leg and you keep losing opportunities. You need to continuously assess yourself, and you need continuously to be able to evolve and adapt. And I say evolve and adapt more than change in a way.
What qualities do you dislike in people?
Lying. I hate lying. Not telling the truth is the worst, yeah.
What qualities do you admire in others?
I admire resilience, people who have this amazing resilience to achieve something despite all the difficulties. This is one of the most noble, capabilities in a person, yeah.
Who are your real-life heroes?
My wife.
Oh, I love that. If there was a book or movie about your life, what would the title be?
I would call it A Man from Alexandria.
Really?
Yes. I think other people will call it The Comeback Kid.
Yes. And it was a movie. Is there anybody who would like to play your role?
Oh, I don't know. I'll check with my daughters. Who'd I like to play my role? Yeah.
What keeps you up at night?
No, I am the type of person who thinks a little bit ahead. So I have a lot of thinking goes my mind. But sometimes very silly things, sometimes very important things. But usually it's an extra cup of coffee that keeps me there.
What makes you laugh?
Yeah, I like to laugh. When I see somebody laughing next to me, I just laugh.
What is your proudest moment?
When I see something that I've worked on happening, yeah. And in today's age, that is even happening through my children. When I see things that I've been dreaming about that they are achieving, you know. These are my proudest moments, yeah.
That's beautiful. What do you love most about your life?
That I'm living it. That's the most beautiful thing about life, that you can live it with everything in it. You know, you have to live it. With the bad moments, with the good moments, with the people around you, with everything, yeah. I think life is something that you can only live. You have to live.
Aside from your business goals, what is left on your personal bucket list?
Well, I wake up every morning and I know there is a long list of things that I have to do and I want to do. So it's not one single thing. I say, I want to learn this language and that language, and I say, I want to learn that skill and I want to visit that country. I have always this very active creation of list in my mind, which I come in the evening, I say, no, let's keep quiet. This is nice. Let's have a quieter life here.
What are you most grateful for?
My family, yeah.
And on that question, what advice can you give on choosing the right partner in your life?
No, I can give an advice to all the young people, and I sincerely said this, mostly to young men, especially in our culture, this is how it works, right? I told them, you have to take as early as possible the right decision about your partner. Because it's important to do it, and it's important to do it as early as possible, and it's important to do it right. No person can claim success in life if you don't have a right marriage and the right partner with you. I know that in today's world, people are deciding to delay decisions and give priority to professional life and so on. Fine, and I'm not against that. But I'm saying that's an important part of it, because I know, and I've gone through many stages in my life, the stability and the balance in your life is very, very important. Yeah.
Of course, but I think the follow-up question is, how do you keep it working for so long? You're also a role model in that.
It's adaptation, as I said. You have to accept to change everything, right? If you are sleeping, you know, at 8 o'clock at night and your wife wants to stay until midnight, then adapt, stay until midnight. And if you are, you know, eating 3 times a day and she wants to eat only twice a day, that's fine, you adapt. So adaptation is fine.
So that's, I think, our key point from the interview, learning to adapt and be resilient.
That's for sure.
Yes. Thank you so much. I think that was great.